What we are about to witness are the first hands that I have played of live poker in the year 2024. Let's enjoy them together. Why no live poker, you may ask? Well, let's see what happens. Christmas happened, New Year's happened, my birthday happened. That's January 4th for those of you looking to mark it down on your calendar for next year. After that, I got sick. Came down with some sort of annoying cold that lasted for a week and a half, maybe even slightly longer. Couldn't shake it for a little while, but now we are feeling much better. We are feeling good. We are feeling ready to go. I've also been in the lab a little bit. Tell you guys more about that later on, probably in another vlog. Happy to discuss that. But let's see, I have played some online poker, of course, happening on WPT Global. But today is not about that. Today is very much about live poker happening right here, the Wynn in Las Vegas. 5, 10, 20. Almost all these hands are gonna be in the format of the 5-10 game with a straddle on, except for one hand, which is gonna have a double straddle on. So lock in, we've got some funsies happening here. We're buying in for 3,000 United States dollars and it's time to play cards. All right, 5, 10, 20, and in this first hand, the cutoff comes in for a $50 raise. We're on his direct left on the button, looking at ace 8 up hearts. I think a 3-bet here feels good. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and 3-bet this up to 180 bucks. My opponent likes the price and he makes the call. Heads up to a flop that comes down. Not too much help to us. It does give us a backdoor flush draw on the king 6-4 with 2 spades, 1 heart, but that is all the connection that we find on this flop. My opponent checks to us, and despite that lack of connection, I'm gonna wager here. Let's put out a little C-bet. I make it $130, to which my opponent calls. Turn is an offsuit deuce, and even though that completes some potential straightening possibilities, I highly doubt that that possibility is in my opponent's range. My opponent is a reg. I don't know if he's opening 5-3 suited, and if he gets 3-bet, I don't think he's calling with it. So I think we can discount that hand pretty easily. And in that regard, I think this card is a brick. So when he checks it over to me, gas time, foot on gas time. I'm gonna go ahead and fire out again, this time for 540 bucks, which gets the job done. And my opponent goes ahead and folds. All right, in this next hand, the cutoff comes in for a raise up to 50 bucks. Action over to us in the big blind, looking down at pocket queens. Third best hand ever created in the history of poker. I'm gonna go ahead and 3-bet this up to $230. Action back over to the initial raiser who wants to play for even more, putting in the 4-bet this time. I don't have the exact amount, but let's call it $550. I had won some hands before this, I had lost some hands after that, so we are sitting pretty close to the initial starting stack, the max buy-in of $3,000. Do we want to pile all $3,000 into the middle with pocket queens? Granted, it is a straddled game, and with that being the case, we are 150 big blinds effective rather than 300 without the straddle. I still think there could be a few too many big blinds to go ahead and get it in versus a good player, and this player is a good player. So I go ahead and make the call. We go heads up to a flop. Flop is jack 4 deuce with 2 spades. We do flop the overpair. That's the good news. The bad news is that we now lose to pocket jacks. Gonna check it to my opponent's stay in flow, and he continues with a bet of $400, which I would expect him to do with literally, just about literally, all of his hands. We're going nowhere with the overpair. I make the call. Turn is kind of a miserable one. It's the king of spades, which means we now lose to ace king. It's also the 3rd spade. I don't think that necessarily matters too much in a 4-bet pot, but we don't have any of those spades, so it is a slight negative at least. Check it over to my opponent again, who this time, after thinking for a little while, decides to check it back. Kind of interesting. River's an offsuit 5. Don't think that should change too much. I think my opponent could maybe find the occasional 4-bet bluff with some wheel aces, so I wouldn't say it is a complete non-factor, but not sure how much it affects things in the moment. Definitely gonna check it once again, and this time my opponent bets $500. We're not super deep as mentioned, and if we were, I think we could consider some check raise jams here. I don't know how much I love it without having a spade in our hand. I just don't think he ever checks back a flush Feels like he's slightly capped perhaps when he checks back on the turn, but can't be sure. Feels kind of a miserable spot here for these queens. I think folding is probably gonna be prudent here. Calling seems absolutely ridiculous. That leaves jamming or folding, and like I said, we're not super deep. So at this point, I decide to wave the white flag, send the queens into the muck, and we don't get to see what my opponent has, unfortunately. That last hand with pocket queens did not work out, but not to worry because we get a redo after we move off of that must move into a main game, and we look down once again at pocket queens. I'm gonna go ahead and raise this up to $50. Cutoff calls, hijack calls, other players fold. So 3 ways to a flop with us out of position versus 2 players. Flop comes down 6-5-3 rainbow. I'm gonna do a lot of checking on these kinds of boards, especially when I'm out of position versus 2 players. Let's do that here. I check it. Player in the cutoff bets. $120 is the price. The player on the button makes the call. 1 pair of queens, I think, might not be quite strong enough to put in the check raise, so I make the call. Turns to 8 of diamonds. Second diamond adds some more connectivity to this board. Check it to my opponents. That first one goes ahead and bets again, this time for $180. Player on the button calls once again, and I think we're just gonna play this pretty passively but straightforward. Folding would be ridiculous. Raising seems even more out of the question now. I'm gonna go ahead and make the call. River is an offsuit ace, which I don't think should interact too much with these guys' ranges, unless my opponent or one of my opponents happen to have top pair on the flop that now has rivered 2 pair. Aside from that, actually feels like a brick, this ace. I check it again. This time, the player of the cutoff, he fires out for $250. Player on the button goes into the tank. Don't think my opponent would mind me telling you guys who he is. This opponent on the button happens to be Adam Walton, and Adam Walton just happened to take 3rd place in the WSOP main event this past year. Big congratulations to him. I got to play with him just before busting that event. He was on my direct left, but I have played with him for years. I think just about every time other than that WSOP main event happened to be here at the Win. Anyway, after thinking about it for quite some time, Adam decides to let it go. $250 feels like a pretty fair price to me. I don't know about you guys. What do you guys think? Fair price? I think fair price. I'm tossing in the $250. What you got, Mr. Cutoff? And Mr. Cutoff has pocket 10s. We can beat that pair. We got a better pair. We got the ladies. Ship it. A little bit of pre-flop fun for you guys in this hand. The button raises it up to $50. The small blind 3 bets to $200. And what do you know? We look down at ace king offsuit in the big blinds. 3 bet, $200. That's not enough. That's not enough action and it's not enough money. Let's 4 bet it, $450. Button gets out of the way right away, and the player on my right thinks about it for a little while before making the call. So heads up to a flop. Queen 4 deuce rainbow. No assistance to us in this scenario, but when my opponent checks it to us, you know what we're doing? We're c-betting. Gonna c-bet pretty damn near our full range in 4-bet pots. Let's do that here. I go ahead and put out a small wager. $250. Don't need to go big, I don't think. It's a pretty dry board and it's a 4-bet pot. That amount gets the job done. My opponent folds. So I think there's some decent chance my opponent actually had the same hand because he was thinking about, look, it seemed like he was thinking about doing some things after we 4-bet it and it got back to him. But he did not do some things, he called, and we get to take this one away on the flop. I don't know for sure that's what he had, but could he have had worse? Could he have had ace jack suited there? It's possible. I would guess ace king. And who knows? At the end of the day, we're all just living, we're guessing, we're doing our best. Who knows what's going on at anywhere, at any one point in time, next hand. Some more pre-flop fun in this hand, but it does go post-flop, so lock in. Button raises up to $60. We look down at pocket 10s. Let's 3-bet this one up to $250 this time. That's us in the big blind doing that, and then action over to player on my direct left in the straddle who wants to play once again for even more money. These are some aggressive games. These are not the easiest games to be found in Las Vegas, not the easiest cash games. That will be a theme probably in videos going forward on this channel. Maybe I'll talk more about that. Anyway, let's focus back on this hand real quick because, like I said, my man on my direct left 4-bets it up to $650. Button once again gets out of the way, back over to us. Quitting sucks, folding sucks, so boring. Let's go ahead and make the call. Maybe we'll flop a set one time. Do we flop a set? No, we flop a full house, but it's the less enjoyable, less exciting, less good full house. It's A flop of 3-3-3, which means if my opponent has what he's representing, the strongest of strong hands, we're still behind despite flopping a full house. I check it over to my opponent, and right on cue, as expected, he goes ahead and bets. $350 is the amount. We have zero choice but to call. Turn is a queen, not a great card for us. I'm gonna check it. This time my opponent slows down with a check. Don't mind seeing that one bit. Let's go to a river card, and that river card is ugly. It's a king. So we get one of the worst runouts that we could have asked for, aside from an ace being on board, but pretty close and not enjoyable whatsoever. I'd go ahead and check it over to my opponent, and this time he thinks about it for quite some time, and he checks back. Not sure if I win here. We lose to a hand like pocket jacks. We can beat a hand like pocket nines, or ace 5 suited, or ace jack suited, but surprisingly, it is bad news as my opponent surprisingly rolls over ace king. That, for some reason, did not bet the river. Yeah, surprised to see a check back there. Of course, I was not going to call a large wager, so I'm sure that's what he was thinking. But if he bet $10, I was going to call $10.
Hold it up, hold it up, hold it up. I keep on holding up, hold it up, hold it on. I keep on hold it up, hold it up, hold it up. I keep on holding up, hold it up, hold it up.
We found some large hands in this session. We've had queens twice. We've had ace king. We've had pocket tens. You know what, guys? It's time to upgrade it to the fullest. In this hand, the button comes in for a raise up to $60. The small blind cold calls over to us in the big blind, looking down at the best. The best. We got the pocket aces. Let's go ahead and 3-bet this up to $320. Button makes the call, small blind evacuates immediately. So we go heads up to a flop that comes down 10, 9, deuce. Looks pretty safe to me. Of course, we are losing to 10s, 9s, and 2s, maybe 10-9 suited, but aces are a pretty good hand. So let's go ahead and c-bet this one. $280 is the size that I choose, which my opponent calls. Turns a little sketchy. It's the jack of clubs, second club. So we are definitely behind some potential hands. I could potentially get behind a check call, slowing down, trying to pot control. I don't know if we're gonna be able to pot control it at 3-bet pots. I could also get behind keeping our foot on the gas here and charging pair plus draws, other overpairs, all sorts of stuff. I'm gonna bet it. Let's do that. I bet $450 here this time on the turn, and my opponent delivers some exciting news when he goes ahead and jams all in for about $1,800 effective. Now, do we love this? No. Do I want to bet fold here with pocket aces? I guess we could consider it. It wouldn't be terrible. But we put a bunch of money in here. We've got aces. Do we want to just let it go? I don't know. Maybe it's bad. Maybe it's bad to just snap call it off. I did call very quickly, which maybe isn't good. Maybe I should be thinking. Maybe poker is a thinking game and I should be thinking more. I'll have to think about that. But anyway, I make the call and my opponent asks if we want to run it twice or once. I say, you know what, let's just rip it. You know, we're trying to make a vlog here. We're trying to make some content for the people. Nobody likes a chop pot. Let's go ahead, rip it one time, dealer. And we see a king on the river, which is not a great card because that puts 4 to a straight up there. And we now lose to pocket kings, pocket jacks, pocket tens, pocket nines, jack 10, jack 9, king jack, king 10, king 9, and anything with a queen in it, and deuces. Does my opponent have one of those? He does not. He's got himself the ace king offsuit, I believe, which improves to a pair, but we've got ourselves the best pair. Pocket aces, they hold up at a big one. We were down a little bit there, down no longer, very much in the green at this point. All right, in this hand, as mentioned, there was gonna be one that is not the $20 straddle. This one is a $5, $10, $20, $40 hand. Double straddle is on in this hand. Action folds over to us on the button, looking down at ace king. Ace king offsuit. What luck? What a time to be. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and raise this. I raise it up to $100 on the button, and action folds over to the double straddler, the $40 straddle, who decides to re-raise. Puts in the 3-bet up to $440. Now I sort of get tripped up a little bit here because in the moment I thought that was a very large raise, but then again, the $40 straddle is on. And so I made it $100 and he's simply making it 4.4x out of position. Seems totally fine. For whatever reason, I thought it was larger than normal. And definitely considered a 3-bet, but just decided to flat call here. It's not that it's bad. It's definitely not a bad flat call, I would say. Seems pretty good. Have some ace kings in your flat call range, because if the board comes ace or king high, and you never have ace king, then they're just gonna be able to blast off. But anyway, that's a bunch of nerd strat talk. So I go ahead and call, and we go heads up to a flop that, what do you know, comes king high. King 9-3 with 2 clubs. My opponent puts out a c-bet, 250 bucks. Let's call. I make the call, and we go to a turn card that is a brick offsuit 4. That's an enjoyable card. My opponent, he goes ahead and fires here, $750. He's got about $1,400 behind or so. And I was debating for a while between just going ahead and jamming or flatting and keeping his bluffs in when we're a little bit under-repped here. I think he's gonna have some bluffs here a fair amount of the time. He's gonna feel like this is a good board for him, a good card to barrel on, and let's do that. I go ahead and flat call here one more time. Off to a river card that is a miserable one. It's the queen of clubs. So that is the downside of flatting on the turn. This is the card that we did not want to see. Don't want to get put to the test here. Do not want to see an all-in jam. And my opponent does not do that. He checks it. So I don't think we have, I don't think there's too much value to be gotten from this in this spot on this river card. I'm gonna go ahead, check this one down. Pot's pretty big. Let's see what you got, buddy. And he shows us pocket jacks that decided to fire twice. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we derive a little bit of extra value there. But then again, I don't think he was folding pre-flop. If we were to 4-bet pre-flop, he's not gonna fold jacks. I don't know if he's gonna jam them. So if he does not jam them, we win somewhere around the same amount of money, perhaps. Maybe not. Maybe he just shuts down to single bet post flop. I don't know, whatever. We drag the pot in, we win some money in this hand, and we win some money in this session. The first session back, 2024. It comes very late in the month, but it is a good one. We get into this game for $4,000, and we cash out of this game for $6,760, which is a profit of $2,760. Feels good to get on the board. Off the bat, Happy New Year, everybody. It's still January. You could probably still say Happy New Year. I'm not gonna take another month off for at least a little while. You guys are stuck with me if you so choose. Would love it if you would click subscribe, because that'll help you find more videos like this one. And I promise there will be more videos like this one. I'm gonna play some more poker tomorrow, and I'm gonna make a vlog out of that too. So I would love it if you would watch that, assuming you enjoyed this one. If you did or did not, feel free to let me know in the comments. We'll go from there. Happy 2024, everybody. Let's get it.